Hi, and welcome back to SEO On Air. I'm your host, Aaron, and today we have Jeff Lizik, CEO and President of RedShift. Talk about five major components for digital marketing essentialism, how agencies can leverage AI technologies, and the best strategies for incorporating AI into your workflow. I hope you enjoy this episode. But how did
Okay.
your journey, let's say, get to RedShift? How did that start off?
So I had started my own agency, I don't know, 2012, somewhere around there. I merged with a business consulting firm 9 months in, and I was there for 5 years, but I knew my skill set and I knew the business that I was helping to grow. And I wanted to have my own agency to build the agency I always wanted to work with because I hated agencies. I still don't like most agencies. And I also wanted to create the work environment for employees that I always wanted to be a part of. So I found a company, Z Brand Group, here in Pittsburgh, I went and worked there for 6 months negotiating the acquisition. And then I bought that business. It was 100% traditional at the time. I brought in probably six internet marketers on day one. And now we're 85% digital and 15% traditional. We only do traditional for digital clients. We don't take just traditional clients. There has to be a digital component um, to what we're doing because our specialty is the digital piece. But we had the creative team to do the traditional if needed.
And is, let's say, the traditional, like you mentioned, around 15 to 20%, is that something that you feel will continue to happen? Or do you feel like after a couple of years, it will completely shift to 100% digital?
I think that there's always going to for the foreseeable future, there's going to be billboards. We are definitely seeing the magazines and the newspapers. I mean, obviously, they're falling off left and right. The newspapers more than the magazines. But I also think that direct mail is going to have its place for quite a while. Um, and as long as people are putting up billboards, now part of the luxury that we have is there's digital billboard options where you can change your messaging and you have full control 24 hours a day. But if you think of every billboard out there, the cost for them to convert those to all digital, it's ridiculous. And these are some of the largest, I would guess you would call media companies in the country, are billboard companies. So I think billboards are going to be there for a while. I mean, radio and television aren't necessarily going to go away, but I think we're already seeing the change. We're already seeing sporting events where they don't cut away and they're just putting ads because commercials are just so ignored. But I still think there's going to be that 10 or 15% traditional for the foreseeable future. So now how's
Yeah,
AI impact that?
we'll,
That's
we'll,
yet to be seen because
we'll get
the
to that.
world's yeah, it's changing so quickly. Um,
Yeah.
but for the foreseeable future, I think it's gonna. There's still components that are effective that, and I think people are taking advantage of radio like crazy because it's so cheap. They're almost giving it away.
Right.
So there's a lot of people still paying for radio just because it's cheap.
Redshift
Yeah,
is doing, let's say, 85% of digital marketing itself, and they want to keep things digital. So I think on the website it was mentioned that digital marketing essentialism is something, a core value, let's say. So could we talk about that and let's say go through some of the basics of it?
yeah. So digital marketing essentialism came about because I was every almost all clients that have worked with another agency have a horror story of working with that agency. That's just how it is. Or they wouldn't be going to a new agency. So the ones that are leaving, there was an issue. And a lot of the issues that I came across, and a great example is somebody that spent 6 figures over the course of a year, well into 6 figures over the course of a year, and could attribute one lead to paid their Google ad campaigns. And they asked us for some insight. And all the ads were going to the homepage, and the homepage was taking 12 seconds to load. And it was literally run GT metrics, see a 6 second call to the server, and get them on a new hosting platform, and they're down under 6 seconds. but the agency they were working with didn't cover the basics. They sold them the ads and that management, but they never took care of the basics. I mean, not even going to a landing page, but even making sure that where they were going was a good experience. So digital marketing essentialism came about because essentially what it is, if you think of a pyramid, it's knowing your consumer and competitive landscape inside out. A lot of people skate on the details of that consumer part, which is why their messaging doesn't resonate and they struggle with conversions. But also knowing those consumer options is a big deal. Then having a fully solidified platform, having contextually relevant content, promoting that content, because content in and of itself isn't going to do us any good if we're not getting eyeballs on it. And then the whole conversion piece, which essentially, when you boil it down to its basic, it's still list building and nurturing. And we've complicated it with automated. I mean, we haven't complicated because they have their place, but it's still list building. That's what we're doing. So digital marketing essentialism then has a consumer engine, which is getting into the empathy maps, the personas, the journeys, and the competitive audits. Then you have your platform, which is all of your technical SEO. And then you get into your content, getting into the topical maps and creating that entire strategy and then building out the content. Then what are we going to do to distribute, syndicate, and promote this content? And then once we have this traffic and we're getting eyeballs, what's our conversion look like? So it's built on the basics because they work together exponentially. Then we start refining it. And then we can get into other channels of, native ads and things of that nature. But without that solid foundation, I feel like a lot of agencies miss the boat for their clients.
What type of services or what kind of businesses does RedShift kind of usually deal with?
So mostly B2B. We have some B2C. B2B, we get into manufacturing, really love professional services because it's content heavy. So the B2B space or even B2C, we do both. But B2B is the majority of our business.
Okay, so let's assume I am Mario Senior and I provide products for plumbing, but it's for plumbing businesses. So I provide products for the businesses to kind of purchase and use for their own thing. If I had now approached you and said, hey, listen, I need some help with digital marketing, where do I start off with? How would this conversation kind of go?
So the very first thing we want to know is, what have you done? What's worked? What hasn't? What are your business objectives? Because we have to understand your end game to build the strategy to get there. So say your business objectives are, you have a new competitor that's out there and you've taken a hit, you're kind of flat and you need to grow. So we're going to go then and do a ton of competitive and customer research. We're going to understand where your target market is hanging out online. We're going to understand what are the competitors doing, and we're going to use the technology to tell us, this is what the competitors are doing. This is where we think they're effective and where they're not. This is, once you get to a competitor's site or landing page, what's their offer? What's their value prop? What's their toolbox look like? And then we're going to go and look at, what have you been doing? And where is that opportunity? Where's the gap? And we have two pieces of this puzzle. One, can we get new customers? Like, how much of the market do you have of new people coming into the category? But then also, how much market share can we take from the competitors? The market share is the easy play, because we're just going to go where the competitors are and start to take market share. But then we're going to look at all the tactics they're using, and we're going to build that strategy out. But we're also going to look for tactics that they're not using that are going to fit into your target market. And we're going to get the eyeballs on the brand. And then we start growing the brand from there. Then we get into, does your website have a great experience? What's that whole platform look like? Is everything about that? Because the user experience has to be phenomenal, which we see Google's trying to get to that every single day, which is why we go through the hell that we go through with the search engines. But it's all about that experience, and it's instant gratification for everybody. So as long as that platform's nailed down and we're putting out content that's relevant to that consumer, we can start to build that conversion engine, but let's get them from A to B as quickly as possible, because it's still that. I mean, if you need plumbing supplies, you're not shopping for weeks or months. Like, we need to fill that immediate need, and we need to get them converted as quickly as possible.
Let's say I have taken some competitor analysis. I've taken a look at what they've done, and I'm trying to implement it into my website and my agent, my business. I've done a few of the SEO parts of it. I've made sure my website is loading a bit quickly. I'm making sure also that like the keywords are mentioned and sprinkled throughout my content in a, not stuffed, but like at least it's there. What would be, let's say, some more of the basics I can cover to at least say, okay, cool, you have the foundation set?
Coming from the agency side, we know that most clients don't actually know their keywords. And just putting
You've
what
got me
they
there.
think are the keywords in the site isn't always optimal. So we would start with the basics of breaking down. I mean, we're going to look at site structure, we're going to look at navigation, we're going to look at, okay, that homepage has to have a goal. What's the goal? Are we accomplishing it? But then if you have service or product pages, in this case, product pages, are those product pages optimized completely? Are we talking about, do we have the right keywords? I mean, obviously, and I think a lot of business owners don't realize that one page can rank for hundreds of keywords. So how can we build out the content here? I mean, do we have the schema for the products? So it's getting in, I mean, they're all basics, but there's so many of them that the person or the company that has them all covered and is doing it well. And that's another thing. We can tell if a competitor has an agency working for them or not, or if they have a great SEO or in-person team, just by looking at the data and looking at the website. But the basics are going to be those foundational things that we know are search signals, but also from that user experience. That's the biggest part of it. And that's what a lot of businesses miss, that experience piece.
So what if I take a note from the AI conversation that we were going to start off and apply it here and say that, hey, for all these things that I might not know much about, why not just throw it into ChatGPT and see what results they give me?
I definitely wouldn't start there. But I would start to figure out the need and figure out, where's AI fit into this equation? I mean, we have AI now that will tap into, they're reading the traffic coming to your site. They're pulling in your demographics and everything coming out of Google Analytics and Google Search Console. And they're producing full, accurate personas with customer journeys, all right there within an AI tool. And they're accurate. They might not have the title right, but they know if a person's a decision maker. They know, it's amazing what the feedback is from, and there's one out there right now that's just phenomenal, but from these persona tools. So once that's a great place to start and say, okay, this is exactly what's happening. We're seeing the path. We're recording that user experience using something like Mouseflow or Hotjar, and seeing where we're losing people. And then, so let's focus on the basic main components of the site, your homepage, your service pages, or your product pages. Let's understand how people are using them right now. And then we can start to use AI to create a better experience. But in and of itself, immediately, AI isn't going, aside from the personas and that journey, which there's some phenomenal tools out there, we're not going to jump right into Chat GPT. Now, I don't know how far you want me to take this, but I have seen people that have gone in, they are creating a webinar, and they will drop that, they will put the proper prompts into Chat GPT. They will get an outline for the webinar. Well, first they'll get a ton of topics. Then they'll pick the strongest topic. They'll get an outline for their webinar. They will also get an outline for a presentation. They'll have Chat GPT write the presentation. Then they'll have Chat GPT fill in the blanks of talking points for the webinar, create clickbait headlines for Facebook, and then create the Facebook ads. So they've literally gone, but they knew the end game. So once we know the end game, then we can use AI tools to assist us.
Right.
But the other part of it is you still have to have the experts touching every piece of it. But that's just an example of once you know where you're going and you have your strategy laid out, then you can get into where does AI fit in and fill in the gaps.
How much of human interaction do you normally see when it comes to AI? Not specifically ChatGPT, but with other AI tools as well.
It depends on if you're doing it right or wrong. So
Makes a lot of sense.
So if you break your buckets down, there are people and agencies that don't want to touch AI. It's taboo.
Right.
To them, they're still afraid. They still think Google hates AI. They're not understanding user experience and
They fear
quality of
Skynet
content.
taking over.
Yeah, so they're not going to touch it. A lot of that is more legacy, older agencies. Then you have a lot of marketers that I think are probably going to fall into more of the freelance realm or younger agencies that just don't understand it yet, but they're taking AI's word for it and just using it as a shortcut.
Right.
And then I think you have some of the thought leaders that are saying, okay, how does AI fit into the strategy? How do we really use this to our benefit, but also allow our team to use it as another part of the tool set to put out the absolute best product for our clients as possible and get results? Because there's one thing, so this is kind of going off on a tangent, but I think it's a great learning point. 2 weeks ago, I get about 6 AI newsletters a day. And if you want me to send them to you and you want to put them
I was
in
going to
the
ask, yes, please.
description, I can send them over to you. There's some awesome ones. And they all recommend tools. And there's also some other places that recommend tools, but I try to stay up to speed with all the new tools coming out. Now, obviously, one of the best things is when a well-known industry tool incorporates AI, we know the investment's going to be there, and that product is going to end up being a market leader. If it's already a market leader, AI is just going to make it better. But there are all these other tools that are being launched. So I had a list of about 200 AI tools. Then I went down and I said, okay, which ones make sense? And I actually did it from me personally or the business. There's personal finance tools out there. I mean, I don't know if you saw, but you just said it. ChatGPT has an Instacart plugin. So you say, I want recipes for these, and then Instacart, it'll fill your Instacart with the products you need to make the recipe. So I took these 200 down. I narrowed it down by more than half, and I started comparing tools. But then what I did, and from a content perspective, I started taking AI content and I started dropping it into multiple on-page graders, or so to speak. I mean, I was dropping it into Page Optimizer Pro, Surfer SEO, Phrase, on page. So I'm getting the content created, and then I'm looking and saying, what's giving me the absolute best, most complete piece of work? And then I got to the point where I said, I'm not happy with any of these, but if I create the brief and I create the outline, then all of a sudden I started getting more of the content that I wanted. So then the challenge was, which tool allows me the most flexibility to create the brief that I want? And then which tool is giving me the best output? And also then which tool is giving me direction on optimizing this piece of content to be the best it can be. So complete human interaction the entire way. Also have to go in and edit the entire thing, which we always run everything through Grammarly.
Right.
Then we go in and we add that personal touch. But we can't take it for granted that every AI tool, A, is the same, even if they're doing the same function, and B, is going to give us good results. So then it's a matter of hypothesizing that this is what I think is the best setup. I'm going to start publishing my content and I'm going to measure my results. And if this didn't help me, I need to go back to the drawing board. But AI can get you to the point where an 8-hour task for somebody was knocked down to 3, or now an hour and a half. Actually, what was the question?
Just
But
in general about AI tools and how
yeah,
accurate they are, how
so
much human involvement was required.
the human involvement, that's I think you can get away without it. But I also think as Google refines its algorithms and as consumers are and prospects are starting to get more valuable information, the people that are using AI and letting it run on its own and they're not touching it and they don't have strong guardrails around the use of it, in the next, I'm probably going to say 6 months or more, that's not going to be the effective route because we're going to see things keep changing. And the people using AI properly are going to rise to the top.
Right.
And the ones that are just using it without the strategy and without the human oversight, they might have success now, but give it 6 months, and I think that they're not going to be having the success they're having. There
I
are
feel like
people
you
now
can
putting out
quick
hundreds of
wins.
articles. What's
Yeah.
that?
I feel like you can get a few quick wins that way, like putting out 100 articles and then ranking for a few of them. But 6 months down the line, those 100 articles are going to be almost useless, I guess.
Yeah, because the people that are using the AI properly, and it's a part of their process, it's a piece of it.
Right.
With human oversight, that's going to give much better results than just letting it run on its own and just
Copy
in
paste.
multiple regards, whether it's for copy, whether it's for your meta description and your title, because there are AI tools, multiple AI tools that create your meta descriptions and your titles. But they're not always spot on. So it's a guide,
Right.
and it saves a lot of heavy lifting. And I almost look at it as think about using Fiverr, and you get something. If you're not always going to get back exactly what you were looking for, but with some TLC, you could turn what you've gotten and into something, but you let someone else do the heavy lifting.
Right.
AI, I see it as if it does us the heavy lifting and it gives us insights we wouldn't have otherwise had. But that still
Right.
involves human interpretation, human strategy, human overseeing the tactical implementation, and using AI as a tool, which is what it's where it gives the best results. If it's part of the system and it's looked at as a tool and it's not the end all be all.
How do agencies like us kind of use AI to our benefit and profit off that without, again, stepping on anyone's toes?
So I think number one, you have to have an internal champion. You have to have somebody. For us, it's me.
Right.
I am fully invested in what we would call the R&D of AI tools and how it fits into our strategy and how it makes us better. But then passing those tools down to the team, letting them evaluate them, see where they come out, and also see if their decisions match the path I would have gone down. But I think you have to
Right.
have that champion that is educating everybody, because as agencies, our employees aren't going home at the end of the day or wrapping up at the end of the day and figuring out what's the best AI tools for them to make them better at their jobs.
Right.
So there has to be a champion, and it has to be somebody that's passionate about it. And once you have somebody with that mindset within the organization, and can start teaching people the value of it, but also being a part of the recommendation and evaluation process, I think that's the only way agencies can adopt it. I mean, I am guessing there are agency employees all over the country and all over the world that are using ChatGPT and are afraid to tell somebody.
Right.
They're just like, so why not have that champion and adopt it internally, educate everybody on the good and the bad, because AI can put out some crap. So, and even AI tools, I've seen more, like some of the more specific niche tools put out more crap than ChatGPT. But we don't always know. Not everybody's identifying what they're using as their source. I mean, we already know the ChatGPT stops at September 2021, and now they've suspended their Bing web interface. So having that without education, it's just another tool that somebody's using and they're going to half-ass it. Right. So I think that education, that champion, that person that is helping strategically guide the organization on what makes us more efficient, but what gives us better results is number one. With that, the efficiency is created because it's AI. We know we're saving time, but we have to focus on what's going to give us the best results. And it takes hypothesizing and testing, because not all AI is created equal and not all tools are created equal. But you have to have a champion doing that, because now you start to eliminate employees using AI that you don't know about. Right. I mean, if you think about it, it's like in corporate America where that one new employee has figured out they can use ChatGPT to do half their job. But they don't tell anybody about it because
they just keep it to themselves.
It's making their job so much easier because now they work at home. So they can get their job done in 2 hours and play video games the rest of the day, and they're not going to mention it to anybody. I think it's smarter to have that AI in a controlled environment where the companies are using it to get better results and also be more profitable. But you can't just let your team run with whatever. Like, there has to be somebody that owns it within the organization.
3 books that you would recommend our viewers and listeners?
Yes. Now, my number one top, actually, I can probably give you more than 3, but my number one top business book of all time is It's Not the Big That Eat the Small, It's the Fast That Eat the Slow. I want to say this book was released in the 90s, but it is more relevant right now today than it has been in a while. And it is about speed. It is about urgency. And so that is a phenomenal book. Breakthrough Advertising, Eugene Schwartz, phenomenal. I mean, a lot of people have forgotten about the classics. And so you have Breakthrough Advertising with Eugene Schwartz, that is a staple for great marketers, copywriters. I mean, this is one of their go-tos, and a lot of people coming up in the space have missed all the books by Ogilvy and the scientific advertising. They've missed out on these books, but Breakthrough Advertising is key. Influence by Cialdini is key. Positioning by Al Ries, and I forget the other guy, Trout, I think. That's key. But then you also have books like Think and Grow Rich that are a staple, that it makes a lot of sense to go back to these classics, because the message, the tactics, the psychological perspective of these things haven't changed. Marketing hasn't changed. The channels have changed. It's still, as marketers, we're trying to get people to do something we want them to do. I think a lot of newer marketers aren't grasping that whole concept that this is all psychology. It's all human nature. And the thought leaders of marketing in general, those were the ones that nailed it. And those are a lot of the classics that is 110% recommended reading for my team. I have a list of like my top 25, but there are, I mean, even you get into Russell Brunson's books and you get into, what is it? They're all sitting right there. Oh yeah. .com secrets,
Right.
expert secrets. Like, I mean, these are classics. Dan Kennedy, like the king of direct response. How many, you walk into multiple agencies and ask people if they know who Dan Kennedy is, and that guy has transformed more businesses from his expertise. I mean, it's just amazing. Right. There's so much to learn out there. But
do you have, let's say, 3 podcasts or personalities or websites, let's say, that you could also recommend?
So, podcast personalities or websites. So one,
you'll have a whole list.
There is definitely Brad Lee, Lea. I forget. Hold on, I'll Google it real quick. I forget the name of his podcast. He is. I don't know if you want to say he's not necessarily self-help, but he is just a great business person, entrepreneur, great at sales, great from just a life perspective. And his podcast, I think, is The Real Brad Lee, Lea. Another one I think that makes sense for the specific audience is Marketing Over Coffee.
Okay.
Wait, who is that? Rand Fishkin.
Right.
I think that I mean, I think that one is another one. Well, SEO on air is that's a given. That's yes. SEO on air is a complete given because, I mean, you guys have had Bruce Clay.
Like, you also had Rand Fishkin.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing who you guys have had and how big your following is. And I'm just stoked to be a part of it because you guys, I mean, you're talking to pioneers of internet marketing.
To be very honest, I feel like you kind of fit the ranks of these same people because the amount I've learned from watching, let's say, Bruce Clay, Neil Patel, Rand Fishkin, I feel like I've learned a lot more as well from this call alone. Like I said in the beginning, I feel like for the most part, I will be just sitting being like, tell me more, I want to learn. But I feel like this was like the most actually educational talk that I've had.
And it's that whole imposter syndrome. Other
Right.
people tell me that, I just don't get it because it's just me. Like I just feel like it's just me being me. Like,
right.
I don't know.
But what are exactly the right ways to implement AI into your strategies? Whether it's SEO, digital marketing, PR, maybe also.
Content is becoming a commodity. But if you use the AI tools the right way and you have some great people on your team to use those tools, that's who's going to rise to the top of what is now commoditized content. But if you can make it a great piece of content with the help of AI, you're going to rise to the top. I mean, it just falls into play with that helpful content, user experience. Are you adding the right graphics? Are you making it a great experience? So it's don't force it. Use it where it is. So there's a lot of personalization tools now from a conversion standpoint. Well, there's a lot of testing that has to be done with those because we are letting AI interact with site visitors. Are we there yet? I still prefer good old A/B testing, but where's AI going to get? And there's multiple tools out there that I plan on testing, but it's an option. SEO, on-page SEO. there's AI tools that are going to help you with that and actually implement it. You still have to go back and edit what it's done or read what it's done. SEO there's AI now. AI is running site performance and site speed. 10web.ai has a tool, or is it 10webai.com? I don't know. It's 10web, but they have an AI performance tool that is going to end up being a competitor with NitroPack and WP Rocket. Now, when you come to SEO, technical SEO, Ali AI has been around for a long time in our space as far as AI goes. It's going to give you 20,000 things you can fix on your website. Are you going to just say fix them all? No. You have to have somebody on your team that knows that tool inside out, that can go through and pick and choose what has been a proven solution for the technical SEO piece of things. Like, you can't just take this blind and say, oh, it'll fix all 20,000 things wrong with my site, and then you run it and your site's gone. So we're not there yet. I actually think that every part of digital marketing essentialism at some point is going to have an AI component to help make it better. Paid ads. I mean, you have Optimizer, you have Optio. What is the one? Magic Cloud. You have all these AI tools, but which one's actually going to be most beneficial for your team, your clients, and give you the results?
Right.
I'm leaning towards Optimizer right now. I mean, you even have RevealBot. That's another one. But how do we take the things that can be made better and cut down time invested? And then B, which tools are also getting to the point that it's showing us opportunities that humans aren't going to find, or it's going to take hours upon hours of data mining to figure out.
Right. And I feel like, again,
but we're not,
AI just chops all of that time in half.
Yeah, but we're not at that plug and play yet. Right. And the people that think it's plug and play and just randomly adopt tools, that's where you can get yourself in trouble. By luck of the draw, some people may pick all the right tools and do great. But is it great 6 months from now? Or have the search engines caught up to them?
Right.
So I forget what the question was.
Right ways to incorporate AI.
Oh yeah. I mean, so it's very, you have to have a process to implement. I mean, look at it as A/B testing. We're going to have a hypothesis that this tool is going to perform in this way. We're going to test it, but we're also going to be a part of it and use it as a tool, not as the end solution.
All right. But thanks a lot for the chat, Jeff. It was great. I learned, I think, my entire career worth of SEO in this one call, along with digital marketing as well.
Thank you very much. So, all right, Aaron, talk to you later. All right, bye-bye.
Right. Thanks for watching that episode. I hope you enjoyed. For more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe.